Did God send a bear to kill 42 children for mocking a prophet for his bald head? That's the question we're going to be diving into for this Theological Thursday. And I want to apologize because this bad boy right here, the mic that makes me sound so wonderful, I forgot to plug it in for the video, and I don't have time to re-record it. So bear with me, as this is going to be an audio from my phone, which is not the worst in the world, but still not the best. So I hope you enjoy this episode of The Stranded Baptist, coming at you from Reykjavik, Iceland. God bless. All right, so this is what happened. I was at my favorite ice cream store in downtown Reykjavik called Joy Lotto, with a J, Joy Lotto. And it's my favorite ice cream store. It's the best ice cream there. If you're ever in Iceland, I recommend that you go there and that you get the NO2 ice cream that they make in front of you with like this, magical gas that they pour into this stuff, and it just looks like witchcraft, basically. So anyways, I was at that grocery store, and not grocery, why do I keep referring to it as a grocery store? It was an ice cream store. And by the way, if you go there, I recommend the caramel, salted caramel ice cream. It is fantastic. And I know if you're like me in the beginning, I was skeptical. What does a salted caramel ice cream taste like? But I'm telling you, it's good. It's really good. But I was in there, and one of the owners is like a new age type of person. He's got like pictures of a few deities, like from Hinduism up there, and then some guy who's like a Hindu meditation specialist or something like that recently passed away, that he's a follower of. And I haven't been able to get into enough conversations with him about what he believes, but sounds pretty strange to me, but I hope that we can start a few more conversations. But one of the pictures up there is Jesus. And there were two ladies in there, and they saw the picture of Jesus. And one of the ladies referred to a story in the Bible to the other one. It's like, did you know that in the Bible, there are 42 children killed by bears because they made fun of a prophet for being bald? And my ears peaked, and I was like, well, what are they talking about? There's not a whole lot of conversations happening here in Iceland about the Bible. Now, these were foreigners in that store, so maybe that was it. But it piqued my interest, and I wanted to make a video answering this question, because it seems like a lot of people were thinking about this. I also got sent a clip from the Joe Rogan podcast where he mentioned this story in the Bible. And so I want to go into the story. We're looking at the verses today, 2 Kings 2, 23 through 25, about Elisha being mocked by kids and him cursing them, and two bears coming out of the woods to kill 42 children because of their mocking of the prophet. Or so that's the narrative that we've been told. So let's read the passage, and I'm reading this from the New American Standard Version, 2 Kings 2, 23 to 25. Then Elisha, this is right after he picks up the ministry of Elijah, and he continues on with it. He went up from there to Bethel, and as he was going up by the way, young lads came out from the city and mocked him and said to him, "Go up, you bald head, go up, bald head." And when he looked behind him and saw them, he cursed them in the name of the Lord. Then two female bears came out of the woods and tore up 42 lads of their number. He went from there to Mount Carmel, and from there he returned to Samaria. Now this is a much better translation than the Icelandic translation that we have. I'm more and more upset by the day with the Icelandic translation that we have. The 2007 version, actually the 1981 version too. It's not great in many, many different places. The word there in the Icelandic used for young lads is smástrákar. And smástrákar in Icelandic can refer to, like, smástrákur can be 3-4 years old. Like, it's basically young boy. So it can be interpreted as small children, 3, 4, 5-year-old kids. Well, first, let's try to figure out what exactly the mocking is about. Because when I started researching this verse, there's a lot of conversation going on as to exactly what is the major point of the mocking. So they taunt him by saying these words, "Go up, you bald head, go up, bald head." Now, some of the scholars that are way smarter than me, they like to suggest that they are mocking him. The mocking mainly revolves around his baldness, and that they're referring to Old Testament law, maybe with regards to skin disease, that he's somehow unclean because of his baldness, and they're mocking him because of skin disease, something like that. Others say it's mocking revolving around comparing him to Elijah, who had just, who he had just proceeded in his ministry. He was known for wearing skins with hair. And so maybe they were mocking him because he looked so different, and, maybe saying you're nothing compared to your predecessor. Something like that. So there are a few scholars in that camp arguing that that's what this verse and that's what this mocking is actually all about. Or others would say their mocking mainly revolves around the go up part of the taunting, and not the baldness itself. Yes, that's a sort of like an extra thing added on there, but the main thing is the mocking go up. And that may be to you and me like, how is that mocking? Go up. But some would suggest that because this is in the beginning of the book, 2 Kings, and in the first half of this chapter 2, Elijah is taken up. And it's one of these pretty strange narratives as to how his ministry ends, because it's not there's no reference to a death or burial or anything like that. It just said the Lord took him up. And so a lot of people have really read into this and have made, that's why people I hang around with view Elijah, in the Christian community of Iceland, a lot of people view Elisha as the prophet that will come at the end of the age because he never died, and so on and so forth. So they're telling him to go up, and they're mocking. If you take this position, then their mocking mainly revolves around, hey, just do what your predecessor did. Just go up. Just be taken away. Just die. Just get out of here. That is the main point of their mocking. Or others, and this is sort of the camp I find myself in, others think the mocking is go up, but in that they're not comparing him to Elijah and what has just happened to Elijah, but rather they're telling him to come to the high places and to worship false God with them, to go up there and stop worshiping the God of the Bible and to start worshiping false gods, meaning that they're basically going, come worship false God, Mr. Baldy. And that's the position I hold to. So to answer the ladies in the ice cream store, if you're watching this, if you're randomly searching the internet and you see the red-bearded guy that you saw at the grocery store that time in Iceland who had a weird look on his face when you guys were talking, or if you're Joe Rogan and you're listening to this, which I highly doubt, for the first part, this may not revolve around them mocking his baldness at all. It may revolve around rather more serious issues like come worship false gods with us. And why is that serious? Because, well, first of all, that leads to eternal damnation for people leaving the God of the Bible. Like, that's the only way for salvation. So you're causing the prophet of God, to try to walk away from that. Second of all, if you look at how people worshipped some of these false gods, like Molech, for instance, Moloch, I don't know how you say it in English, Molech in Icelandic, that includes some despicable acts of worship. For instance, you would create an idol of Molech who had 2 arms, and you would make him out of metal, and then you would heat up the metal until the metal started glowing because it was so hot. And some people would sacrifice their own infant children by placing them in the hands of this idol who was glowing hot, and they would burn to death. Now, I have not looked at specifically how they are worshiping here when they're talking to Elijah, but know this, there are horrible ways that the people worshipped back in the day. This is not, a lot of us are used to sort of Christian worship and so on and so forth. There's a lot of messed up things that happened in the worship of false gods. Even if you don't take my position and see the seriousness of eternal damnation, if you're an atheist or agnostic, even just realize, okay, that the way they worshipped was just despicable in so many ways. Now, it was just an absolute horror. So they mock him, he curses them, and 42 out of the individuals there die. We don't see how many people are there, but at least 42 out of those present there die because of these bears. Now, the second part of this question revolves around how old were these boys exactly? What does young lad mean? Are we talking about 17-year-old men? Are we talking about 3 to 5-year-old kids? I'm no expert in languages, but the only thing I can do is I can read the experts and what they have to say about this, and I can go and look at the Hebrew word that's being used and see how it's being used elsewhere in the Bible. I would recommend that you go, for instance, to a free resource if you don't want to spend money on a big software like Logos or something like that. I recommend you go to the blueletterbible.com. And you can go there, you can look at the passages. If you go to the King James, it has, you can look at the Greek or the Hebrew or the Aramaic. You can see how it's used in other places. You can see how it's pronounced and so on and so forth. So that's a valuable resource that's free online, and you can do this as well. If you just go to that verse and you see young lads and what Hebrew words are being used there, you can see where the other places are that it's being used in Scripture, and I totally recommend that you do that. That's the only resource I had for the longest time. I've only had like a paid-for software for the last, I think it's less than a year. But I do love Logos, I'm not going to lie. So I look at these words to say young lads in the Hebrew, and it turns out it's Na'ar Katan. Those are the two Hebrew words that are being used. And I viewed how they're used in other places in the Bible. For instance, in Genesis 37:2, Joseph is referred to as Na'ar when he was 17 years old. When Solomon takes over as king in Israel, he refers to himself as Na'ar Katan. In 1 Samuel 16 and 17, it's referred to David as Katan, as he was the youngest of his brothers. Now, he's not 3 or 4 about to go fight Goliath, but he's Katan, as he's the youngest of his brothers. And so it seems to be, a reference to other people there. Katan is also used in reference to Jacob and Rachel being the younger siblings. At that time, Rachel is wanting to get married. So she's not a 6-year-old. She's a young adult by then. Then there is, in 1 Kings 11:17, there's this character, Hadad the Edomite. He's the enemy of Solomon, and he ends up fleeing to Egypt with his father's servants. And there's the combination of those two words used to describe him. He was Na'ar Katan. And if you think about it, okay, he's old enough to take over his father's servants. He's old enough to lead them on a journey to another country. And when he gets to that other country, he's old enough to speak to the Pharaoh so that Pharaoh takes a liking to him, even granting him land in Egypt and eventually giving him in marriage to his sister-in-law. So what we're looking at here is not a kid. This is a young man. This is a young, unmarried man. So the idea I walk away with when I check out these words being used, and especially the combination of those two words, because I know that each individual word can change when it's in a different context, and there's a different word preceding it, and so on and so forth. But especially there in 1 Kings 11:17, when they're both used together, I think it makes a sort of strong case that this is referring to not young children. This is referring to young men. So the 42 that were eaten by bears at Elijah's day, these are not kids that are just sort of childishly mocking them. These are young adult men possibly calling him to come worship false gods with them in despicable ways. Now, the idea I walk away with is that maybe these combination of words are used to describe men that are young and are not yet married. They're not yet husbands or fathers. They're not yet heads of their own households. Maybe that is a good way to interpret these combination of words. That's the idea, sort of, my own idea. So I'm not referencing any experts here. Anyways, I hope this helps with questions that may arise about this in the future that you may deal with. I pray that you'd have the opportunity to share the gospel with some people, to help people grow in their faith, and that you grow in your faith as well. The next 2 weeks are going to be a bit hectic here on my end, so I'm not too sure about a podcast coming on next 2 weeks or a video coming out next 2 weeks. But I am going on Tuesday to Israel, and I'm going to be literally staying at an Airbnb in Old Jerusalem, minutes walking time from Via Dolorosa, the Garden Tomb, the Garden of Gethsemane. I'm super excited about it, but I'm going to be there with my phone, and I'm going to be filming and my mic. But I'm not going to take my computer with me, and so I'm going to edit that when I get back. So I'm really excited to hopefully record some stuff outside of some of these places where the things were actually happening, and maybe dealing with some questions that arise around that, and just giving it. I'm geeking out even just thinking about this. I'm super excited about it, but I'm going to be using my phone. My thing is, I have a film degree and I know how to use better equipment, but I want to try to smooth things out so it's less of a process. So I got my iPhone 7, and I'm going to try to make the video look as good as possible. So I like the challenge. I've got an awesome app now on my phone, but we'll see how it turns out. I hope to release some videos, both in Icelandic and in Icelandic for Apologia, for Lofstormar Baptistakirkja, and some English videos for the Stranded Baptist. So stay tuned. If you listen to us on a podcast, then you might want to tune into YouTube for those videos. Thank you guys for watching. Like always, if you want to help get the word out, then you can like this video, you can rate us on the podcast platform you're listening to us on, you can share this on social media, you can share the video and like the video on our Facebook page. There's plenty of pages. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube. That would help a lot. And if you want, you can click that notification bell right next to the subscribe button if you want to get an email into your inbox whenever we release a new video. So God bless you guys. God be with you, and use you as salt and light into the community that you're involved with. God bless. Thank you for watching or listening to The Stranded Baptist. If our episodes have been helpful to you or beneficial to you at all, and you want to help us out, then there are a few ways you can do that. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can ring that notification bell if you want an email notification when we release videos. You can share our stuff on social media. You can like on YouTube, or comment and like on Facebook, or comment or rate us on your podcast platform. I want to thank you for listening, and thank you for giving us the time out of your day, out of your week, to listen to hopefully some beneficial Christian material to build you up in the faith.